Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodholt. I think one of the things we don't talk about enough at church is the sense of vocation. I said vocation, not vacation, but far too often we in fact take vacations from our vocation. Sometimes we think of vocation as our occupation, but they aren't necessarily the same thing. Our vocation might be better understood as our calling in life. Frederick Buechner has said that vocation is where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. We're spending this week before Reformation Sunday looking at some approachable quotes from Martin Luther, and today we want to look at some things Luther said about Christian vocation. It was a big topic for him. Luther said, "The Christian shoemaker does his duty not by putting little crosses on the shoes, but by making good shoes, because God is interested in good craftsmanship." With this quote, Luther is talking directly about vocation. Not all are called to be pastors or work full-time in the church. Luther believed that God also created society and the many ways our society functions, and we need all the various parts. Therefore, faithfully fulfilling your vocation in God doesn't mean empty shows like putting little crosses on shoes, but rather by making good shoes. In other words, where God has given you a calling, gift, and skill, do it well in service to your Christian sisters and brothers. Do it well because this is who God made you to be. That's the essence of being faithful. Another famous quote from Luther is, "God does not need your good works, but your neighbor does." I think Luther is acknowledging that we are in community and that our responsibility as Christians is to love God and to care for one another. There's nothing God needs us to do for God, but God calls us to respond to God's love in service to our neighbor. Where we do good to a neighbor, when we serve a neighbor, we are living out the love of God. As the prophet Micah said, "What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God?" And of course, the other thing is to ask the question the lawyer asked in the gospel, who is my neighbor? It can mean the person down the street, but it's not limited to that. It also means the person halfway around the world who is hungry, the refugee fleeing danger from war or violence, the homeless, people at our borders, those in prison, those we really don't want to have anything to do with, and those not like us, those we find it convenient and easy to ignore. This is hard for most of us. It's hard to shake us loose from our lethargy and complacency. Our good works don't merit us anything, and it is not God who needs our good works. It is our neighbor who does. Perhaps our last quote for the week might not seem like a quote about vocation, but I think at its heart it is. Luther said, "Forgiveness is God's command." I think we should consider that one of our primary vocations in life is to live in forgiveness for one another. Imagine how our world would be different if everyone went around in a vocation of forgiveness, living it out and offering forgiveness generously, daily, as God has given forgiveness to us. Forgiveness is God's command for the way things are to be between God and us. Forgiveness is God's command for how things are to be between us and others too. It's who God has called us to be. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.